I arrived at the school hall with a racing heart, feeling a mixture of nervousness and nostalgia. The walls were decorated with old photos and colourful posters reminiscent of the 90s when we lived the best years of our lives. It was strange and comforting at the same time to see familiar faces, albeit more mature, some with grey hair and others with wrinkles that time had drawn. As I walked between the tables full of snacks and drinks, I couldn't help but think of Tom. Would he come? The thought of meeting him again after 2 decades caused me almost unbearable anxiety. Did he remember me with the same intensity? I squeezed the wine glass in my hands, trying to calm my nerves. "Rachel, is that you?" A woman's voice caught my attention. I turned around and saw Claire, my old best friend, with a wide smile on her face. Her hair was shorter, but her green eyes remained the same. "Claire, how long?" I answered, trying to hide my discomfort. Our friendship had ended abruptly, and I still carried past hurts. We talked for a few minutes, exchanging superficialities about our current lives. She mentioned that she was living in London and working as a magazine editor. As Claire spoke, my gaze wandered around the hall, looking for a specific face. "Are you looking for someone?" Claire asked, noticing my distraction. "No, just reviewing the familiar faces," I lied, smiling forcibly. At that very moment, the door to the salon opened and Tom entered. My heart stopped for a second. He was more charming than ever, with an air of maturity that only time can provide. His brown eyes met mine almost instantly, and I felt an electric discharge run through my body. We stand still, just staring at each other, unable to say anything. Time seemed to have frozen, and all the memories of our past together came to the fore. Our walks in the park, the summer nights, the stolen kisses in the school library. "Rachel," Tom finally said, his voice hoarse. "Tom," I replied with a shy smile, feeling my cheeks flush. "How long?" he continued, slowly approaching. "Yes, 20 years, I replied, trying to keep my composure. "How are you?" "I'm fine, and you? I heard you became a successful lawyer." "I have an office in Manchester, and you, still writing?" "Yes, I have published some books. I'm living in Edinburgh now," he replied with a twinkle in his eye. Before we could continue, the music started playing and the DJ announced the opening of the dance floor. Tom held out his hand to me with a charming smile. "Do you want to dance?" he asked. "Of course," I replied, accepting his hand. As we danced, the closeness brought back all the emotions I was trying to bury. The familiar smell of his perfume, the warmth of his body, everything was so nostalgic. "Do you remember our first dance?" Tom asked with a wistful smile. "How could I forget? It was at prom," I replied, laughing. "I was so nervous," he confessed. "I thought I was going to step on your foot." "You kind of stepped on it," I joked. The conversation flowed naturally, as if time had not passed. But then Claire appeared again, interrupting our moment. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I steal Rachel for a second?" he asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course," Tom replied, reluctantly letting go of my hand. I went with Claire to a more reserved corner of the hall. "We need to talk," she said, with a serious tone that left me apprehensive. "What is it, Claire?" I asked, trying to hide my concern. "It's about the tone," she began hesitantly. "What about him?" My curiosity was now at its peak. "There is something you need to know," she continued with an enigmatic look. And so, my reunion with Tom, which seemed so promising, was suddenly shrouded in mystery and uncertainty, leaving me with more questions than answers. I woke up the next day with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. The night before had been a whirlwind of emotions, and the thought of meeting Tom again made me apprehensive. I spent hours getting ready, trying to choose an outfit that was casual but also conveyed confidence. I opted for a simple blue dress, which always made me feel safe. I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, and seeing him sitting at a table in the corner, I felt my heart race. He looked so different, but at the same time, so familiar. Tom raised his head and our eyes met. A shy smile broke out on her lips, and I returned it. "Rachel," he said, rising to greet me. "Tom," I replied, feeling a wave of nostalgia as I heard his voice. We sat down and started talking about trivial things, the weather, coffee, old schoolmates. However, there was an underlying tension, as if we were both avoiding something. Finally, after a few minutes of superficial conversation, Tom broke the ice. "So how has your life been?" he asked, looking at me with sincere curiosity. I took a deep breath before answering, "Well, I graduated from law school and now I'm a lawyer. I work in a big office here in Manchester. What about you? I heard you became a writer." Tom smiled, a gleam of pride in his eyes. "Yes, I have published some books. I was lucky in this area. But I never got married." That last sentence hung in the air, heavy. I couldn't help the question that gnawed at me from the inside. "Never married? Why?" Tom looked away for a moment, as if carefully choosing his words. "I don't think I ever found the right person. Or maybe I've never gotten over what happened between us." I was silent, feeling a lump form in my throat. Before I could say anything, he continued. "Actually, one of my books was inspired by the two of us," he confessed, taking a copy out of his backpack and placing it on the table. I picked up the book with trembling hands, feeling a surge of contradictory emotions. I flipped through the pages, recognizing moments that only we shared. "I don't know what to say," I murmured, feeling emotional. Tom put his hand over mine in a comforting gesture. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that, in a way, you've always been with me." We were silent for a moment, absorbing the intensity of the reunion. It was clear that there was a lot between us that needed to be resolved, but there was also a spark that never went out. Suddenly, my cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Claire, my old best friend. "Rachel, we need to talk. It's urgent," the message said. I felt a chill run down my spine. What did Claire want now? "Is everything okay?" Tom asked, noticing my change of expression. "Yes, just an unexpected message," I replied, trying to disguise my concern. "Claire wants to meet me. Sounds important." Tom frowned. "Claire, I didn't know you guys were still in touch." "Actually, we're not, so I'm surprised," I admitted. He nodded, seeming to understand. "Well, if you need anything, I'm here." I thanked her with a smile, even though my mind was already racing, trying to decipher what Claire might want. We decided to end our date, but agreed to see each other again soon. As I walked away from the cafe, a mixture of feelings enveloped me. I was happy to have found Tom again, but Claire's message brought a new wave of uncertainty. What did she have to say to me? And how might that affect the fragile reconnection I had just established with Tom? As soon as I got home, I texted Claire, setting up a date for the next day. I needed to figure out what was going on and, more importantly, how it could impact my future with Tom. The night was long and restless, full of thoughts and memories that intertwined, preparing me for a new chapter in my life. I woke up that morning with a lump in my stomach. Claire's message, setting up an urgent and mysterious meeting, echoed in my mind. What would she have to tell me? Since the reunion with Tom, my life has seemed like a whirlwind of emotions. I was anxious, confused, and above all afraid of what was to come. Arriving at the cafe where Claire had suggested, once the meeting was over, I saw her sitting at a table in the corner, absent-mindedly stirring the cup of coffee in front of her. I took a deep breath and walked over to her. "Hi, Claire," she said, trying to appear calm. She looked up, and I noticed a shadow of concern in her gaze. "Rachel, I'm glad you came." She gestured for me to sit down. "We need to talk." I sat down, trying to keep my composure. Claire hesitated for a moment before starting. "There's something you need to know about Tom. Something that happened right after you broke up." My heart raced. What else could emerge from the past? "What do you mean, Claire?" I asked, feeling the tension rise. She looked down at her own hands, visibly uncomfortable. "Me and Tom, we had an affair. It was brief, but it happened right after you broke up. I felt as if the ground had disappeared under my feet. Anger, sadness, and betrayal mixed inside me. "How could you, Claire?" My voice came out louder than I intended. "You were my friend!" She lowered her head, embarrassed. "I know, Rachel. It was a terrible mistake, and I deeply regret it. But I thought you needed to know." I stood up abruptly, unable to stand there for another second. "I need to go," he said, leaving the cafe with tears in his eyes. I drove aimlessly for some time, trying to process the revelation. Finally, I decided I needed to confront Tom. I couldn't move on without hearing his version of events. Upon reaching Tom's apartment, I slammed the door hard, my heart pounding wildly. He opened the door, surprised to see me. "Rachel, what happened?" he asked, worried. "Claire told me about you guys." My voice was shaky. "How could you do that?" Tom sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Rachel, it was a mistake. I was devastated after our breakup and made a mistake, but it never meant anything. I looked at him, trying to find some sincerity in his eyes. And you never thought to tell me? I asked, hurt. I thought, but I never thought it was the right time. He took a step towards me, but I backed away. Rachel, I deeply regret it. There's not a day that I don't think about it. I felt a mixture of anger and pain. I didn't know if I could trust him again. Without another word, I turned and left. I needed time to think. I spent days immersed in my own feelings, avoiding Tom. Until one rainy morning, I received a call from an unknown number. Rachel, you need to hear this. I found evidence that Claire is lying. Tom's voice sounded on the other end of the line. What? Evidence? What do you want to say? I asked, surprised. She invented all this to separate us. Claire has held a grudge against you since high school, and that was the way she found to get even. Tom explained, his voice filled with frustration. Tom, this is serious. If you are lying... I started, but he interrupted me. Rachel, I would never lie to you about something like that. Please meet me at the cafe in half an hour. I have the evidence. Reluctantly, but with a glimmer of hope, I went to find Tom. He was there with an envelope in his hand. Here are Claire's messages admitting that she lied about paternity. She sent it to a friend, and I got access. I took the envelope with trembling hands and began to read the messages. There was the naked truth. Claire confessed that she had made up the story to separate us, that she still harbored past resentments. Tom, sorry for doubting you, I said, tears streaming down my face. He approached, wrapping me in a tight hug. Rachel, I understand. All this was a shock, but now that we know the truth, we can move forward together. I felt a deep relief, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Yes, I want to move on with you. Over the next few days, Tom and I worked to rebuild our trust. He showed me that he was committed to making our relationship work, and I allowed myself to believe that. We decided to start our story over, now free of secrets and lies. Tom, with a hopeful smile, said, Rachel, no matter what the future holds, I know we can face anything together. I held his hand, feeling a new surge of hope. Yes, Tom, together we can overcome any obstacle. And so, with renewed hearts and an unwavering determination, we begin to write the next chapter of our story, certain that true love prevails, even in the face of the most difficult trials. I was nervous. Tom sent me a cryptic message asking to meet at a special location. When I got to the park, the same one where we had our first kiss, my heart raced. Nostalgia and uncertainty mixed, creating a storm of emotions inside me. I saw Tom in the distance, sitting on a wooden bench, the same one where we sat 20 years ago. He got up at the sight of me and walked towards me with a shy smile. Hi, Rachel, he said in a soft voice that reminded me of the old days. Hi, Tom, I replied, trying to control the tremor in my voice. He pointed to the bench. Shall we sit down? I want to talk. I nodded and we sat side by side, with a certain distance between us. The initial silence was heavy, laden with unspoken words and buried but still alive feelings. Tom began to speak, looking at the horizon. Rachel, I know there's a lot between us, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, but I wanted to try and revive some of that magic that we had. Do you remember this place? How could I forget? I answered with a sad smile. This is where it all started. He turned to me, his eyes shining with determination. I wanted to show you that despite everything, I still believe we can have a future together. I know I made mistakes, especially with Claire, and I'm sorry, but I want you to know that I'm willing to do anything to fix this. My heart faltered. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. Tom, I want to believe that too, but it's hard to forget what happened. Claire, what she told us. It hurt me a lot. He sighed, holding my hand. I know, Rachel, and I'm sorry, but I'm willing to change everything to be with you. I actually decided to move to Manchester. I looked at him surprised. Are you serious? Yes, he replied, shaking my hand lightly. I want to be close to you. I want to rebuild what we had, but in a more solid, more mature way. I can't change the past, but I can fight for our future. Those words touched something deep within me. Perhaps somehow we could overcome all this. Tom, I want to try too. But we need to be honest with each other. We can't hide anything. He nodded with a relieved smile. I promise, Rachel, no more secrets. We decided to take a walk in the park, remembering the good times we shared there. With each step, it seemed that the barriers between us decreased. I felt a growing hope, a spark that maybe, just maybe, we could really start over. As we walked, I spotted Claire in the distance. She was sitting in a nearby cafe and seemed to be watching us. As we approached, she quickly looked away, but not before I noticed the tension on her face. "Rachel, Tom," she greeted us with a forced smile. "What are you doing here?" "We are talking," I replied, trying to remain calm. Claire seemed to hesitate for a moment, then stood up. "There's something I need to talk to you about, but not here. Can we meet later?" I exchanged a look with Tom and he nodded. "Of course, Claire, let's dial something up." She smiled, but there was something strange in her gaze, something that made me uneasy. As we walked away, Tom pulled me closer. "What do you think she wants?" "I don't know," I replied, feeling a new wave of anxiety. "But we'll find out." As we headed back to the park, uncertainty hung in the air. We were willing to try, but we knew the road ahead would be full of challenges. However, for the first time in a long time, I felt that maybe, just maybe, we could find happiness together again. I was beginning to believe that finally Tom and I could have a future together. However, life had a cruel way of testing our resilience. We were walking quietly through the park when we found Claire, and she seemed hesitant but determined. "Rachel, Tom, I need to talk to you," Claire said, a tone of urgency in her voice. Tom and I exchanged a worried look. "Of course, Claire, what happened?" I asked, trying to hide the tension. She took a deep breath before dropping the bomb. "I'm pregnant, and there's a possibility that Tom is the father." I felt like the ground had opened up under my feet. Tom turned pale, his eyes wide with shock. "What are you saying, Claire? That's a lie!" Claire shook her head, her eyes filled with tears. "I know it sounds impossible, but it happened. We need to deal with it." His words echoed in my mind, and my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. "Tom, is that true?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Rachel, I swear it's not true. Claire is lying," he replied, holding my hands, but I pulled away. "I need some time to think," I said, walking away quickly. The pain and confusion were overwhelming. How could I trust Tom again with such a revelation? I spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions. Doubt corroded my thoughts, and sorrow enveloped me like a cloak. Meanwhile, Tom was desperately trying to talk to me, but I needed space. It was then that on a rainy morning I received a call from an unknown number. "Rachel, you need to hear this. I found evidence that Claire is lying." Tom's voice sounded on the other end of the line. "What? Evidence? What do you want to say?" I asked, surprised. "She invented all this to separate us. Claire has held a grudge against you since high school, and that was the way she found to get even," Tom explained, his voice filled with frustration. "Tom, this is serious. If you are lying," I started, but he interrupted me. "Rachel, I would never lie to you about something like that. Please meet me at the cafe in half an hour. I have the evidence." Reluctantly, but with a glimmer of hope, I went to find Tom. He was there with an envelope in his hand. "Here are Claire's messages admitting that she lied about paternity. She sent it to a friend, and I got access." I took the envelope with trembling hands and began to read the messages. There was the naked truth. Claire confessed that she had made up the story to separate us, that she still harbored past resentments. "Tom, sorry for doubting you," I said, tears streaming down my face. He approached, wrapping me in a tight hug. "Rachel, I understand. All this was a shock, but now that we know the truth, we can move forward together." I felt a deep relief, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. "Yes, I want to move on with you." Over the next few days, Tom and I worked to rebuild our trust. He showed me that he was committed to making our relationship work, and I allowed myself to believe that. We decided to start our story over, now free of secrets and lies. Tom, with a hopeful smile, said, "Rachel, no matter what the future holds, I know we can face anything together." I held his hand, feeling a new surge of hope. "Yes, Tom, together we can overcome any obstacle." And so, with renewed hearts and an unwavering determination, we begin to write the next chapter of our story, certain that true love prevails, even in the face of the most difficult trials. If you liked this exciting story, don't forget to leave your like and share with your friends. And in order not to miss any of our inspiring stories, subscribe to the channel and activate Tinkerbell to receive notifications of upcoming videos. We want to know your opinion. Leave in the comments what you think of Rachel and Tom's reunion and if you believe in second chances in love. Thank you for watching, and until the next exciting story.